Leanne Helensworth. Leanne Helensworth. Megan Dables.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, thank you for letting me stay on to record my comments. So I am a mother of 3. I have a middle schooler and 2 high schoolers. One of my children has an IEP, and I would especially like to speak on behalf of him tonight. The virtual learning absolutely did not meet what is laid out in his IEP. And did not support him in moving forward in his goals at all. And that is not the fault of any of his teachers and educators. I understand that they were thrown into sort of an impossible situation with virtually no time to plan. So I get that is what happened in the spring, but we can't let that happen now moving forward into the fall, winter, and next spring. Because it is a violation to his rights for free and appropriate public education. He is 2 years away from adulthood, and his goals are about functional living skills. It's not about academics, and so losing that time is very significant for him. I also want to speak to the fears that I hear being voiced both from educators and parents. As somebody who works in healthcare today in a hospital, taking care of very sick patients with COVID, having very close contact, the precautions work. My employer shared today that we have had not one single case of an employee having contacted COVID from a patient, and we are talking about the sickest of the sick patients and coming in very close contact and using the PPE and hand hygiene is number one. I understand that people are concerned about children wearing masks, but hand hygiene is number one. I'm in support of returning back to school 5 days a week with appropriate protective measures. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all, so I would also suggest live streaming from each of the classrooms so that families that are not comfortable, or if kids are sick or need to quarantine for a short period of time, that they would have the ability to watch the live stream of their education and not fall behind. Thank you.
Leanne Helensworth. Leanne. Michelle Cameron.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, I am in absolute favor of returning back to school as normally as possible. I'm a pediatric nurse. I'm exposed to numerous illnesses. I did hear a parent mention the flu and cold season. Where has this concern been over all these years for our teachers and students over other illnesses? I'm not concerned about COVID and our children. I have 4 sons who've been through the the Waukesha School District over 25 years. I have 1 16-year-old left at West, thank goodness, because that's the age I think absolutely needs to be back in school. I've been on the parent advisory board, volunteering in health room, playground, lunchroom. I know the very benefits of in-person learning and what these children need for their social interactions to avoid isolation, to avoid depression. They need these social interactions. Children who are in, even teenage children who are in homes that are not supportive, possibly abusive, neglectful homes are going to be suffering even more if we do not get them back into school. I have seen patients in our clinics with increased blood pressure, depression, anxiety. It's not good. And I want patients to know, parents to know that kids are being flagged, patients are being flagged for having symptoms of COVID when all they have reported is that they've traveled to the Dells. There are inaccuracies in these cases. There's inaccuracies in the reporting. And so I'm not concerned, but there are far-reaching, long-lasting adverse health consequences for children regarding their physical, mental, emotional, and social well-being if they don't get back to school. Thank you.
Sorry. Pete Homar?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Hello. I have two children enrolled at the Randall STEM Academy. One will be starting kindergarten and one will be starting third grade this fall. I sent an email to the Board of Education members with a list of my concerns. I look forward to the answers to those questions, but in the interest of time, I will not repeat them here. I think that the concerns about mental health, special needs, impoverished families, those are all valid concerns, but they do not make the COVID-19 virus less dangerous. The benefits of in-person learning are wonderful, but they do not make the COVID-19 virus less dangerous. It's a virus. It does not care about the results of a survey. Reopening schools fully does not just increase the risk to our kids and the teachers and their families. It puts our whole community at risk. It is a less than ideal situation with no easy answer. We as a community will either do what we need to do to adapt to the threat of COVID-19, or we will fail to. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Stacey Keane?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I just want to first start off by, I don't even understand why this is up for debate. There is a great option that Waukesha offers for online learning with eAchieve, and any parent who is in a position that they need to do that has that option. We have 3 children in the district, and I'm also a substitute teacher in the district, and am willing and able to still perform those duties this year. I strongly believe the students need to be in school come September. There are so many facts provided to support the idea that being out of school is harmful for children. From learning losses to abuse to mental health, all of this is far worse than COVID is for children. Please do not allow those rooted in, for those with fear rooted in non-facts to scream louder than what is best for our kids. There are ways to do this that parents have talked about earlier that allows everyone to feel safe. As great as the teachers did in the spring, the education still lacked in a big way. There is no substitute for in-person learning at all. And I'd like to close by just reading off the CDC website. And the CDC strongly urges for children to be in school. It says, based on current data, the rate of infection among younger school children and from students to teachers has been low, especially if proper precautions are followed. There have also been few reports of children being the primary source of COVID-19 transmission among family members. Thank you for hearing all of us tonight. I appreciate it.
Shannon Weissenberger?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, oh my God, yay, okay. The reopening recommendations are very thorough and extensive, and my husband and I just want to express our gratitude for the work and the time that went into creating them. It was very enlightening and helpful to read about the in-person recommendations that are designed to mitigate the spread of the virus. Please don't start in-person learning on September 1st unless the Waukesha County Department of Health cancels the 100-person large gathering recommendation. We don't believe that in-person learning should start until at least 2 weeks following a steady decline of COVID-19 cases in the county, rather. And we don't believe that in-person learning should start until schools are logistically capable of the recommendations in the reopening plan, specifically social distancing at least 25 children by 6 feet in the classroom. And in-person learning shouldn't start either until there's a clearly defined communication plan when, not if, a COVID-19 case is discovered in a school. Not just to those who may have been exposed, but all parents and staff, I believe, should be informed. In addition, those recommended changes in the plan, as far as the environmental conditions are concerned, such as any necessary adjustments to air conditioning or ventilation, those should be completed before in-classroom learning. The CDC guidelines, I think our last speaker was just speaking
30
about those. They also say, thank you. The CDC guidelines also state that people should quarantine for 14 days if they come into close contact with anyone. Well, that kind of leads us to the conclusion that at some point, you know, an entire school may have to shut down for 14 days. My husband and I also want to suggest that there's not going to be any way to fully sterilize everything that's in a schoolroom, especially the carpeting, which we did see in the video, you know, in South High School. It's very important to sterilize all services, including carpeting. Thank you.
Tariq Ahmed.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to thank the Board of Education, the staff, and the people who worked on the committee. I consider myself lucky because I am a former parent in the school district of Waukesha. I think that you need a phased reopening. I think it is important to get the K through 5 in school and the students who have special needs. They are the ones who need that in-person learning the most. This is a big petri dish that we are putting hundreds of staff, students, and support staff into. And the results, if they tend to have outbreak of COVID-19, it can really be tough for the school board members to deal with. So it is important that we have a phased approach. We have the option, if we live stream, that for people who stay at home, their kids can still learn. And we bring high school, the middle school and high school in maybe 2 days a week at a time, break them in groups so they are still getting the social interaction. That is really important. I don't think it can be total virtual learning.
30 seconds.
So mental health, and I think you should look at HVAC improvements that can help things like the global plasma system or UV lights in HVAC system to deal with any COVID-19 or other bacteria or viruses in the airstream in schools. Thank you. And thank you for all the work you guys have put in.
Thank you, Tariq. Justin Kuhn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask kind of a rhetorical question, but since when is it not okay to be sick? Kids get sick, adults get sick. It happens every year. COVID is a virus. I realize people think it was new this year, but coronavirus has been around for a long time. This happens to be a different strain, sure, but we have the flu every year. People get better and then you're stronger after that. I work in an urgent care. I've had COVID patients and they're all fine. Every single one of them has been fine. So I fully support going back to school 5 days a week. And I don't believe that mandatory masking would be a good idea. If they want to recommend masking, that's fine. For the parents who want their children to wear masks, that should be an option. However, I feel parents who don't feel that way should also have their own option. Not to make light of someone earlier who said she had COVID, but she and her whole family said they wore masks everywhere, yet they still got sick. So doesn't that show that at least in her case, masking didn't work? Also, there are no studies on children wearing masks at all. So here we are talking about safety, but we don't even know the safety of our own children wearing masks for prolonged periods of time. For the people who are afraid, there is the great option e-Achieve, and no one's taking that away from them. For those of us who aren't afraid, I would like our option of children going to school in person not to be taken away either. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this and for all of your efforts.
Thank you. Amanda Formanek?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm an elementary art teacher in the district, and I am really concerned about the idea of going right back into school 5 days a week, especially as a specialist teacher. I teach almost the entire school with the exception of 3 classes, meaning I see 500 kids twice a week, and I haven't seen any kind of information on how teaching would look like for me and the other specialists, especially at the elementary level, because not only am I exposing myself to hundreds of kids, but I'm also exposing every single child I come in contact with to everyone else I encountered. Sorry, I'm getting a little nervous. I also am concerned about teachers and our families as well. I think eAchieve is an amazing option, but as teachers, we don't have any other option other than what district decides. And I know for me personally, my mom has an immune deficiency, so I'm really concerned about her and me exposing her for me going back to school as well. I am worried about following the CDC guidelines, as we are not supposed to be sharing any kind of supplies, and I'm supposed to be going into every teacher's classroom to teach their students art, which I'm fine with if that's the route we go, but I still feel like it's just not a safe option for every single student. And as far as I'm concerned, one student getting sick and passing away is too many. I'm terrified for the students and I'm terrified for myself. And I hope that we could do a more phased opening instead of just jumping right into 5 days a week. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne Helensworth, we'll try one more time.
Can you hear me this time?
I can.
All right, great. So I just want to say, as a parent of a 3rd and a 6th grader in the district, I want to thank the reopening committee for their efforts put into coming up with a plan. While I realize there is no perfect answer, there is no perfect plan. What I do see is that the plan that's been created lacks flexibility. And so while I understand we do offer as a district the eAchieve program, I don't see that the plan that's been created offers a short-term option like many other districts have proposed for return to school. I'm not opposed to reopening our classrooms. I'm not opposed to reopening schools, but with the correct precautions in place. What I am concerned about is managing the spread within the school. My children attend and are attending schools that are very old buildings. In fact, many of the old buildings have very poor ventilation. Many of the classrooms lack even basic air conditioning. And so these children are sitting in rooms that have stale, stagnant air on a regular basis. On top of that, parents knowingly send their sick children to school pre-COVID. And so I've many times witnessed children walking in the door at the beginning of the day saying their parent gave them Tylenol, ibuprofen before they walked out the door so they didn't have a fever when they arrived. Or children admitting they've been throwing up all night long prior to that parent dropping them off at the door in the morning. So what's in place in this plan does not provide a way for the students and the staff to handle those situations. It's the parents that are becoming the issue. The staff needs to be able to take action, require these students to go home. Will there be mandatory COVID testing if a student has those symptoms? And if not, is that student required to still quarantine for 14 days? Are parents going to avoid testing so that they don't have to keep their child home? So those are some of the questions that I'd encourage the board to consider and ensure that the logistics are in place to support a safe return to school for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Tam Leonard?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, first I want to thank the board members for allowing the public to speak. I'm also a healthcare worker. I have 2 students in elementary school in Waukesha, and I fully support the kids going back to school 5 days a week at the school. And those that are not comfortable with that, they have an option. They have the eAchieve option that they can use. So I don't even know why there's a debate, because you would be giving 2 choices. Virtual learning was not ideal. While I know that my kids' teachers tried really hard and put a lot of work into it, I 100% know that they did not get the education that they would have had they been in the building last spring. And I don't want my kids to fall further behind the longer they're out of school if they were out this fall as well. Also with that, starting off a new school year with new teachers and those teachers knowing nothing about their new students, their learning styles, their abilities, their family situations would be really, really hard on both the students and the teachers. The numbers are going up, but testing is also going up. Actually, in my department at the hospital, we are running COVID tests and we are doing a record number of tests per day. So yes, you are going to see more cases. COVID cases in kids is very, very low. And I'll leave with this comment. Any worker right now, whether you're a grocery store worker, healthcare worker, you're at some sort of risk. And I don't see why teachers and school staff should be exempt from that risk. It's their job. Thank you.
This is Tammy's husband. Could I add a comment as well?
Yes, you may. May I have your name for the record?
Jonathan Leonard.
Go ahead.
Thinking about risk, the comment that someone made about that just one child dying from COVID is too many, that's too much of a risk. Well, it's one child dying of being hit by a car walking to school is too much of a risk. Will we not let children walk to school? One child dying in a car accident on the way to school is too much. Will we not let children drive to school? One child being struck getting off the bus is too much. Are we not going to let kids bus to school? Everything in life is a risk-reward decision. Is it worth the risk to do X in order for the reward? In this case, I think the risk of the possibility of a child getting COVID is worth the risk of them being in school and receiving the better education and the better social interaction.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Okay, we've reached the end of the list of those who signed up. I want to thank everybody for your input. We appreciate it. The board will be able to view this later on. So thank you, and I wish you all a good night.